When Evan's 99th mistress approached me, I was getting my nails done. She flung out an ultrasound report. "You're Evan's wife, right? I'm pregnant, so you should divorce him quickly." I glanced at it and skillfully pulled out a stack of evidence of her indiscretions and tossed it over. The woman's attitude did a 180-degree turn. She tore up the ultrasound report. "I'll leave Evan immediately." I admired my newly done nails, blood red and vibrant, which had taken 8 hours. A minute later, I said, "Remove them." After all, there was a fierce battle that night. Having nails would hinder my performance. Since marrying Evan, I've either been dealing with his mistresses or on my way to deal with them. I've long become the laughingstock of our social circle. Whenever they see me, they teasingly ask for my secrets to discovering mistresses. In truth, I don't care about Evan having affairs. What I care about is mistresses trying to seize property. Moreover, for every mistress I discover, Evan unconditionally grants me one request. This time, I chose to have a child. "What do you want this time?" As soon as I entered the door, I heard Evan's lazy voice. Looking in that direction, he had his long arms spread out, lounging on the sofa waiting for my response. I changed into slippers, walked over, and said seriously, "A child. I want a child from you and me." His narrow, fox-like eyes took on a bit of seriousness as he sized me up. He lightly patted his thigh with his right hand. I sat down accordingly. He pinched my waist, and with a pull of his long arm, I fell entirely into his embrace. Gazing at his stunningly beautiful face, I took the initiative to kiss him. At the height of passion, he exerted force while coldly scolding, "Don't delusionally think you can trap me with a child like those other women. Even if you give birth, I could never fall in love with a woman like you who was forced upon me." He used violent force. I frowned in pain, swallowing the cry of agony that reached my lips. I don't know how much time passed. He was called away by a phone call. I lay on the bed, breathing heavily, my hand stroking my flat abdomen. What I wanted was never that pitiful bit of love. Evan is promiscuous, a notorious playboy in our circle. Wealthy merchants in the circle are unwilling to let their daughters associate with him. Even past 30, Evan remains a frivolous wastrel. His parents are deeply worried and have no choice but to expand their social connections downward. Through layers of screening, someone like me, an orphan with excellent academic achievements but from a poor background, entered their view. They simply needed an obedient, sensible woman who could assist Evan. I pretended to be obedient, sensible, and gently cared for Evan in every detail, appearing pitiable and humble. Occasionally, I displayed high emotional intelligence in my remarks, which pleased Evan's parents greatly. Despite Evan's strong opposition, I was still thrust by his side, becoming the ridiculed Mrs. Evan. After that, Evan became even more unrestrained, sometimes taking on 3 mistresses at once. He let paparazzi expose him time and again. As his wife, I had to take on the responsibility of maintaining his reputation. Once, he played too wildly, causing problems for the Jiang group. After being severely reprimanded by Evan's parents, he restrained himself considerably. After that incident, I began my own plan. I started plotting step by step. Initially, my conditions were merely gold, silver, jewelry, and handbags. Then came expensive houses and cars, making Evan think I was just a vain woman. When I had nearly exhausted those conditions, I graduated just in time. Naturally, I entered the Jiang group, climbing upward relying on my own abilities plus the halo of being Mrs. Evan. Ding dong. A provocation from Evan's 100th mistress. It was full of jealousy, every word and sentence revealing her hope that I, as Mrs. Evan, would break down and cause a scene. I casually replied a few sentences, turned off my phone, and walked into the bathroom. Scenes of jealousy come easily to me, but I never immerse myself in such meaningless competitions. What I want is to stand at the pinnacle of power. As long as I conceive the Jiang family's bloodline, Evan's parents will shift from tolerance to disdain toward him, thereby nurturing the one in my belly, the new heir. My in-laws indeed frequently urged us to have children. So when I proposed having a child, Evan didn't resist much. He himself loves to play around. As long as I took the initiative more, he was very willing to be intimate with me in bed. But every time intimacy ended, he was called away by a woman on the phone. This time, midway through intimacy, the noisy ringtone interrupted the atmosphere. He stopped his movements, and his action of answering was cautious. I don't know what the mistress said. Evan withdrew, put on his clothes, and left. This situation had happened before. In the past, even if those mistresses called, he would put it on speaker. While exerting force, he enjoyed my pained expression and spoke vulgar words to the woman on the phone. The woman cooed and pretended to be angry on the receiver. On this side, he mockingly said he wouldn't like me, it was just a family duty. I've heard similar words for 5 years. Unexpectedly, this 100th mistress could make Evan interrupt what he was doing and go to her. She has some skill. Ding dong. The mistress sent a message, Evan truly likes me, with one call, he comes running to me. If you're sensible, agree to divorce quickly and stop clinging to him. I chuckled lightly, how are you so sure he loves you? Just a second ago, he was exerting himself on me. She went silent on the other end. Probably angered. Angered just like that? Being Mrs. Evan isn't that easy. Which of those 99 mistresses haven't I seen? Evan made me deliver contraceptives to him in the middle of the night. If he forgot protection in the heat of the moment, he'd even make me feed the mistress birth control pills. Evan is very skilled at stabbing at people's hearts. As soon as I drove away one mistress, he'd immediately find another. Then he'd give me a compensatory candy to prevent me from complaining to my in-laws. But his actions don't stab at my heart. Naturally, I wouldn't complain to my in-laws. The more he acts out, the more advantageous it is for me. Seeing the faint second red line on the pregnancy test, I immediately went to the hospital. Upon confirming the pregnancy, I told my in-laws first thing. They happily invited Evan and me to the old residence for dinner. That night, heavy snow fell. The winter wind was bone-chilling. Midway, Evan received a call from his mistress, Evan, help, the call cut off. He slammed on the brakes and urgently shouted for me to get out. I glanced sideways at his sharply defined face. His cheeks showed a serious expression that had never appeared with the previous 99 mistresses. He was serious. He had taken this Luna to heart. Seeing I didn't move, he lifted his leg. His long leg easily kicked open the passenger door and booted me out of the car. Go by yourself, he said anxiously, then floored the accelerator toward Luna's home. I had investigated Luna, her family conditions were poor. She had a younger brother, and her parents favored sons over daughters. At a young age, she worked in a bar and accidentally had a one-night stand with him. In front of Evan, she appeared harmless, with a baby face and eyes always moist. She always seemed so pitiful and innocent. Her eyes often faintly rimmed with red. But privately, she frequently cursed me. The distance wasn't far, I originally planned to walk to the old residence. After all, in 5 years of marriage, this was the first time I'd been kicked out of the car. But after just 2 steps, I stopped. I was pregnant. For the sake of the child in my belly, I couldn't take risks. So I called my in-laws, having prepared an excuse for Evan. I said he left due to temporary business, and I couldn't get a ride at that moment. Of course, my in-laws didn't believe it. They knew their son's character best. In less than 10 minutes, I arrived at the old residence. After examination by the family doctor, my pregnancy was confirmed. The smiles on my in-laws' faces gained a bit more sincerity. After 5 years of marriage, you've finally conceived a grandson. Claire, you know what kind of guy Evan is, don't be angry with him. You're carrying the Jiang family's bloodline now. Once born, he'll naturally focus on the child. Evan's heart wouldn't return. But I didn't care. I obediently agreed. They gently cared for me, letting me stay at the old residence. A dedicated nutritionist handled my meals. Top-tier nannies took care of my daily needs. Meanwhile, Evan, because of my pregnancy, Luna was unhappy. She threw tantrums for a long time. In the past, when mistresses threw tantrums, Evan would have discarded them long ago. This time Evan unprecedentedly abandoned work, took Luna on an overseas trip, and tried every way to coax her. Looking at photos taken by surveillance personnel, sometimes they romantically strolled on a small island, sometimes danced and kissed on a yacht. It seems Luna's parents approached him. Evan used means to transfer Luna's household registration from the Sue family. With $200 million, he severed the Sue family's ties with Luna. It resembled the domineering CEO sweet romance novels I used to read. The CEO uses means to handle everything for the female lead, resists the wealthy parents, and lives sweetly. Unfortunately, life isn't a novel. Money can't sever blood ties, it only nourishes greedy appetites. During this period, I wasn't idle either. While helping Evan handle the public accounts he drew from, I persisted in climbing upward in my position. My ambition was written on my face, very obvious. Several times, I used my private money to buy photos from paparazzi and hid them. My in-laws secretly monitored me too. Seeing me acting suspiciously, they thought I was cheating and rushed over, only to find paparazzi photos. Looking at me with a bit of genuine affection, all these years, it's been you covering up Evan's dirty affairs, you've worked hard. I smiled slightly, Mom, this is a daughter-in-law's duty. She patted the sofa beside her, signaling me to sit over. Holding my hand, from now on, you don't need to worry about these things, we old couple can handle them. Just focus on nurturing the fetus, don't go to the company. The grandson's healthy birth is the priority. Leaving the company would mean cutting off my access to internal information. Impossible. I pursed my lips, Mom, I know my limits, it won't affect the child's health. I like working. Once I stop, I tend to overthink. My mother-in-law looked at me and silently transferred $10 billion to my account. They had always been good to me. Every so often, they'd deposit money into my account, mostly $1 million at a time. I didn't need it daily, so I saved it all, amounting to tens of millions. $10 billion was a first. It meant I had gambled correctly. I smiled and thanked my mother-in-law for her affection. After she left, I looked at the $10 billion and, without blinking, donated it to Project Hope. My hand slowly rested on my flat abdomen. What I wanted was more than this $10 billion. I wanted the entire Jiang family to belong to me. Power is the most wonderful remedy. After Evan returned, learning I was staying at the old residence, he directly brought Luna home. According to the nanny there, Luna hated my scent. She threw away all the incense in the house. Anything related to me was also indifferently discarded by Evan. The entire house was sprayed with a strong orange perfume scent. The nanny once complained to me, Madam, that's a very cheap perfume smell, but Sir prefers the pungency and insists on letting her spray it. My belly grew day by day. I still navigated the company, and as my in-laws valued me more, the company internals naturally began to value me too. Plus my abilities, I helped the company avoid several reputation crises multiple times. I began to access the core layer. In contrast, Evan cared less and less about work. His concern for Luna escalated, to the point of disregarding company interests. Whenever Luna's family came causing trouble, he'd draw from public accounts. Each time nourished the Sue family's greed. His playboy immaturity irresponsibly used public funds as proof of their love. He even stuffed Sue family members into the company. Just because of Luna's word, after all, it was her own brother. Even if her brother did wrong and I caught him to fire him, he'd just impatiently say, Can you stop always targeting Luna? I've always been obedient. Naturally, I listened to my husband and no longer targeted her. In turn, he arranged the clueless Luna as my secretary. Luna understood nothing. She couldn't keep up with my pace, didn't understand what I said. As soon as I spoke, her eyes would redden, then she'd go to Evan, crying without speaking. Evan would burst in, berating me who was heavily pregnant. With Luna's help, the company successfully lost several orders. Yet Evan blamed my incompetence, telling me to hurry home and nurture the fetus. I silently endured. As I approached delivery, Luna clearly felt anxious. She tried multiple times to cause me to miscarry. Seeing me evade her plots several times, in a fit of anger, she directly pushed me down, causing premature birth. I clutched my belly in pain, blood starting to flow from below. I looked at my nominal husband Evan. Husband, blood, our child. Evan protected her behind him and said coldly, children can be reborn. Who told you to bully Luna? Serves you right. No one is allowed to help her. Luna hid behind Evan, smirking triumphantly at me. She wanted to drag it out until my child died. Unfortunately, my pregnancy was highly valued by my in-laws. Eyes they planted were everywhere. Seeing me fall, they panicked, supported me, and nervously sent me to the hospital. Luna was unwilling, blocking the elevator door to prevent help. Without thinking, they kicked Luna aside, slapped her, and hurriedly took me to the hospital. Their bosses were my in-laws, the grandparents of the baby in my belly. Not Luna. They knew this clearly. My in-laws, upon learning, immediately came over, demanding Evan break off with Luna. Yet Evan openly knelt before them, Mom and Dad, I'm serious about Luna. My heart has only her. Anyway, the child you wanted, I've given it to you. Once Claire gives birth, I'll divorce her, marry Luna, and let her care for the child. As the loud infant cry came, I knew Evan was finished. The gender had been checked in the womb early on. It was a son. Exactly what I sought. Only a son could win over the young elders' hearts. Right after birth, the son was taken for paternity testing. Evan knelt outside the delivery room, sincerely kowtowing to his parents. Mom and Dad, Luna knows she was wrong, it was Claire provoking her, and she lost control momentarily. Luna promised me it won't happen again. Anyway, I don't like Claire, just give the child to Luna, let her make amends. My father-in-law kept a stern face without speaking. My mother-in-law stared at him quietly, her eyes full of disappointment. Give to Luna? Your dad and I aren't in the company, but that doesn't mean we're blind. If not for Luna pushing Claire, how could she have premature birth? Do you know prematurity has risks? Evan was unconvinced and sighed, how dangerous can it be? It's just Claire deliberately targeting Luna and inducing premature birth. Mom and Dad, my heart has only Luna. At worst, Luna and I can give you a child, it's the same. At that moment, the paternity test results came. They were sent to my father-in-law's phone. He showed it to my mother-in-law. When it showed biological father-son, the last bit of indulgence in her heart completely dissipated. You and Luna have a child? Claire is the daughter-in-law we selected, known to everyone in the circle. At this time, if her child died and you had a child with that cheap woman outside. If others knew, how would they view the Jiang family's upbringing? How would they gossip behind our backs? My mother-in-law's tone grew heavier each time. She was truly angry. Evan had never seen her angry before. In the past, no matter how he fooled around, they'd laugh it off and later advise him to be careful daily. But this time, she actually yelled at him. Kneeling, he looked at his father. Dad, I don't like Claire at all. You wanted Claire, and I gave her to you, now I just want to be with Luna, is that not allowed? Why do we care what outsiders think? This is our family matter. My father-in-law sighed helplessly, his eyes full of disappointment toward him. Though they indulged Evan, they had boundaries. Before, there was no alternative but to cultivate him. Previously, though playful, he knew limits and wouldn't joke with the company. Now, he disregarded the company's reputation entirely, letting a mistress run amok over his legitimate wife. Moreover, I was their carefully selected premium daughter-in-law. Good figure, good image, matching appearance, high IQ, and emotional intelligence honed over 5 years quite well. Externally, I was impeccable, praised by all as a good daughter-in-law. Whether company or home, I managed everything orderly. Orphaned, clean background. What about Luna? Her appearance inferior to mine, looks okay, but education truly poor. Not only greedy parents, supporting her family is a bottomless pit. No matter how much wealth, it could be greedily taken. How could such inferior genes enter the Jiang family? It would invite much ridicule. Evan was already a bastard. If his choice of spouse was poor too, the Jiang group's future would surely decline. They had struggled their whole lives and absolutely wouldn't allow such a possibility. Hearing this, Evan went mad, standing up to protect Luna behind him. I hate this kind of talk from you the most. Luna is good in every way. Just because her strengths aren't in these areas doesn't mean she's inferior. She can't choose her background. Should we blame her for that? I have the ability, can't I support her? With support, Luna will definitely not be inferior to Claire in the future. I thought you parents were open-minded, but you're feudal too. After saying that, Evan angrily led the red-eyed Luna away. Before leaving, he declared that if they didn't agree to their marriage, he'd never return to the Jiang family. My mother-in-law's expression was indifferent. Victor, let's go see our grandson. As for our son, he has his path, let him be. Evan ran far out, looking back several times without seeing his parents. In the past, they would surely chase after, persuade kindly, advise against tantrums, then agree to many things, allowing him to make demands. But this time, his parents didn't come out. Luna bit her lip, released his hand. Evan, maybe you should go back. Uncle and aunt are for your good, I understand their well-meaning advice. I know my family is bad, I can't drag you down. His gaze was firm. What drag down? You've always been great, 1,000 times better than Claire. Luna, since I've chosen you, it can only be you this lifetime. I'm their son, I don't believe they'd really abandon me. Don't worry, once Claire is discharged, I'll divorce her. I was wheeled back to the ward, looking at the little one in my arms who had finished milk and was sound asleep. My heart melted completely. Evan's genes are really good. Fused with mine, even newborn, one could see he was a beauty in the making. I couldn't resist, carefully pinched his cheek. The little guy seemed to feel it and rubbed against my fingertip. Too cute. The ward door opened. I saw my in-laws enter. I sat up, smiling weakly. Mom and Dad. Look, the little guy is so cute. You name him? Hearing this and seeing the cute little bundle, my in-laws' eyes softened like spring water, unbelievably gentle. To build a close relationship with the child, I must let them participate. Naming is the most crucial step. Each time they call the name, it deepens the intimate bond. After discussing for a while, my in-laws named him Adrian. How about that? I nodded. Good name. With curved brows and eyes, I looked at the little guy. Adrian, Grandpa and Grandma named you. Adrian was very cooperative. He just opened his eyes and grinned at his grandparents. It melted their hearts, and they came every day. Upon discharge, my mother-in-law passed the ancestral bracelet to me. This was passed from Evan's grandma to me, now I pass it to you. You've worked hard. After discharge, they often picked up Adrian to play. I directly didn't interfere. In-laws are Adrian's grandparents. Even with generational affection, they know how to educate children. I peacefully did my postpartum recovery. On the 8th day of recovery, I received a divorce agreement. With red eyes, I sat on the sofa dazed for a long time. My in-laws, upon hearing, came running with Adrian. They participated in Adrian's every bit, making him very attached to them. Wherever they went, they had to bring Adrian. I did recovery at the old residence but in another villa, not living with them. My mother-in-law asked, "What's wrong? You can't cry during recovery." Her tone worried. I handed over the divorce agreement. Angered, my mother-in-law kept a cold face without speaking for a while. Adrian clearly sensed something wrong and grinned hard to amuse her. My mother-in-law sighed deeply. Told me not to worry, they'd handle it. Let me recover well. I nodded with red eyes. Each in-law deposited 10 billion into my account. They also gave me 10% of the group share specially. Yet I didn't dare truly relax daily. I'd work online occasionally, monitoring company dynamics in real time. On the first day after recovery, I boldly dealt with the group's parasites. Namely, the relatives Luna tried every way to stuff in. Whether brother or cousins from uncles and aunts. All dealt with. Evan deliberately sought me out, questioning if I was deliberately targeting Luna. I lowered my head handling business, ignoring him. He grabbed my wrist, pulled me out, and threw me on the sofa. Claire, I'm asking you. What? Now that you've borne my child, you don't take me seriously? I tell you, I'm parents' biological son, don't think bearing a child makes you secure, I must divorce. I laughed. He glared, what are you laughing at? I now feared no wastrel. Laughing at your stupidity. Trampling parents' boundaries repeatedly for a woman. This group was built by parents' lifetime struggle, a wall cast of blood and sweat, why let you ruin it? Evan angrily slapped me. It's not for an outsider like you to meddle in my family affairs. I quietly watched his near-breaking expression. Your beloved Luna's relatives, during their time in the company, caused many business losses. They also strutted arrogantly, bullying others, causing employee complaints and disrupting order. In-laws spared them for your face. But I can't let the company be ruined by them. Evan growled low, what justice are you pretending? Jiang Group is vast, how could it care about those losses? I rubbed the slapped spot. Parasites, if not eradicated, will gnaw at the tree's heart. Evan, please leave, I still have business to handle. Whoosh. 5 black-clothed bodyguards burst into the office, staring straight at Evan. Evan immediately saw whose people they were. He roared, I'm the Jiang Group heir. Pointing at me, throw this bitch out. I've already divorced her, she has no right to be with me. The bodyguards looked at me, at Evan. Apologetically to Evan, sorry, young master, old madam and old master specifically said. We only obey madam's orders. I nodded lightly, signaling them to drive Evan out. The guards threw Evan out. I simply lived at the old residence. When free, I played with Adrian. Most time, I handed Adrian to the elders. With Adrian holding their hearts, I gradually accessed the group core, winning people over. Meanwhile, Evan, for being too excessive, had his financial sources cut by in-laws. He wasn't incapable, he found a job on his own merits. But no matter the job, he couldn't return to former circumstances. From frugality to luxury is easy, from luxury to frugality is hard. Luna, having tasted good days, couldn't return to bad ones. The two began quarreling over daily necessities. Especially after I drove out the relatives, those relatives said very ugly words. Stimulating Luna, making her view Evan increasingly painfully. But Luna didn't think of leaving Evan. Because she was still gambling. Gambling that Evan was their biological son, they'd take him back. Since that divorce agreement was handled, in-laws never mentioned it again. Evan didn't seek me either. After all, he was their biological son, they worried if truly divorced, later if Evan regretted, I wouldn't help. After Adrian could walk, he changed daily, in a blink, he was 3. The little guy was truly smart. Inheriting all advantages, not only strong learning ability from young, but impeccable EQ. Always coaxing in-laws to laugh heartily. Adrian held them tightly, often pestering them. Leading them to gradually delegate power. I knew even delegating was useless. As long as they wanted, the power in my hands would soon be taken back. So-called connections would switch sides instantly. That's the charm of power. So since Adrian could learn, I began teaching him business ways. When Adrian started elementary school, he'd run to the group whenever free. I hid nothing, taught everything, and promised all under my name would be his when adult. I held nothing back, devoted to the company. Meanwhile, the in-laws were indeed aging gradually. Warned by Adrian, they began lacking energy, plus my flawless performance over years, they increasingly trusted me. But all under their name was for Adrian. I had no thoughts on that. Suddenly, a severe illness from the environment spread, in-laws were infected. I isolated Adrian. Cared for in-laws day and night. But they seemed unable to hold on. lying in bed, family doctor rescued multiple times. In the last, they thought of Adrian. Coughing, hoping to see him once. I sighed with mask, Mom and Dad, I also want Adrian to see you. But this contagion is too severe, he's in the next villa, uninfected. If he comes, being so young, he'd surely get infected. But don't worry, there are dedicated caretakers, once you recover, you'll surely meet. I glanced at the family doctor. Father-in-law looked deeply, coughed several times before calming, Claire, I know we won't recover. You've waited for this moment long, haven't you? I smiled with curved eyes, Dad, what are you saying? I'm your daughter-in-law for a day, for life. How could I curse Dad? I was orphaned young, you let me experience parental feelings. Mother-in-law with ventilator, turbid eyes slowly closed. She panted a few times, removed the ventilator, we knew long ago you had ideas. But when we realized, it was too late. This illness isn't that severe, you deliberately used means on us. Only with severe illness and death can you legitimately rule behind the curtain. Now Adrian is young, by adulthood, the group would have changed surname. I promised, Mom and Dad, rest assured, the group remains surnamed Jiang. In the future, it's all my Adrians, that won't change. Mother-in-law looked at me, then can you let Evan return? You haven't divorced, you should help him, after all, he's our son, your husband. My smile deepened, if that bastard Evan returns, wouldn't he ruin the group? Moreover, when I advised bringing him back, you were unwilling. Mother-in-law stared straight, it's all you, you've been plotting all along, right? Constantly scheming to make us fall into your traps one by one. Why must you do this? If you want power, we can give it, if money, we never lack. Why must you do this? She sat up agitatedly, grabbed my wrist, gurgling sounds spilling incomprehensible questions. My eyes showed indifferent smile, looking at them, because I want absolute power, not your handouts. Mother-in-law widened eyes, why? Giving the ancestral bracelet represents our recognition, we've been good to you usually, why? I shook off her hand, think a little favor moves me? When Evan treated me that way, you never helped. You're Evan's parents, I understand, I don't demand you be good to me. But the power I want, I'll never let go, blame Evan for giving me the chance to climb, blame you for choosing me, choosing an ambitious, and scrupulous me. Mother-in-law coughed violently, eyes bursting with hatred and regret toward me. Regretting choosing me back then. If known this, better to have chosen Luna. I sneered, choosing Luna, you'd regret too. At least Luna wouldn't frame me. I impatiently, when you chose me, wasn't it utilization too? Using my orphan status, no background, using my gentleness, making me yield repeatedly. You're not good people either, privately, your hands are stained with blood time and again. Everyone for their interests, winner takes all, that's what you taught me. I just don't want to be exploited completely. Mom and Dad, time to go. I unplugged their ventilators. Watched them suffocate to death. I glanced at the family doctor. He handled the aftermath. I disinfected fully and went to see Adrian. Adrian, Grandpa and Grandma didn't make it, with red eyes, I hugged Adrian. Adrian, still young, looked worriedly, coaxed me. Asked where Grandpa and Grandma went, why didn't make it. I directly said they went to heaven, became stars. He was naturally intelligent, understood the meaning. At the funeral, the little guy cried into tears, unwilling to leave for long. I was the model daughter-in-law, holding the overall situation. In-laws' relatives, seeing me a woman, immediately wanted to share the spoils. I directly had all their shady evidence delivered one by one to their homes by subordinates. Soon they all quieted. I had handled 99 mistresses for Evan. Such dirty materials were effortless. With handles in hand, no one dared provoke me. Evan heard from somewhere that in-laws passed. Stumbled over to question me what happened, said I didn't care well. In-laws dead, what was Evan? I had people throw Evan out. Evan demanded divorce, said Jiang group all his, make me leave with nothing. Instigated by Luna to sue. Day before court, Luna called to brag, "Claire, you're completely done, with the elders gone, who'll back you? Evan now has only me in heart, after divorce, Mrs. Evan position can only be mine. Then I'll live luxuriously, you wait to be a beggar." I laughed, only fools let others back them. I have ability to back myself. Isn't it just Jiang Group? Give it then. I promised in-laws not to change the group's surname. After court, I left with nothing. Evan wanted custody, but to him, Evan was a stranger man. Son wouldn't go with him, ultimately custody with me. Evan gave monthly support. I took Adrian and left freely, moved into newly bought villa. 5 days later, Evan rushed angrily, wanted to hit me. I dodged. "Claire. You did it on purpose. You deliberately gave me the Jiang Group, now it owes trillions. I went to inherit parents' property, found all on Adrian. I inherited the group but found only external debts. It must be you, you did this deliberately. I say, why you so readily left with nothing, why did you do this? Quickly return parents' property, that's all mine, mine." He rushed agitatedly. I raised hand, took Adrian aside. Bodyguards immediately blocked in front. Evan widened eyes, incredulous. "You, why help this bitch? I'm your young master." Bodyguards' faces flashed slight difficulty. I chuckled, "My Adrian is the true heir. Jiang Elders property division always on him, what relation to you? You wanted group inheritance, we gave it, what dissatisfaction?" Evan glared hatefully, shouting to kill me. I called police. Let him reflect inside for a period. After out, Jiang Group completely bankrupt, all his property empty. Heard Luna, seeing no benefits, while he reflected half-month, found new home. Evan out, learned, furious, thinking trillions unpayable, simply perish with Luna. Both seemed to fall off cliff dead. I didn't tell Adrian, he had no feelings for Evan anyway. Jiang Group bankrupt, I took it back. Still called Jiang Group, but legitimately on me. Though shareholders unwilling, employees disloyal. So what? I never planned their loyalty to me. Like the bodyguards around us. Their loyalty forever to interests. Can be loyal to in-laws for interests. Can be loyal to me for interests. At power's pinnacle, those dissatisfactions naturally disappear. I still taught my son without reservation. At 18, I transferred all company property to his name. I only assisted. When 20-year-old Adrian could stand independently, I began living freely. I wanted to travel the world, experience other lives in remaining time. I returned the Jiang ancestral jade bracelet to Adrian. It belonged to him. Adrian didn't understand. "Mom, why give all you struggled for to me? You can hold power yourself." I smiled faintly, things not brought in birth, not taken in death, Mom has no obsession. Mom has brought her world to experience, more important dreams to realize. Perhaps no one understands why I returned power to Adrian. Could hold it myself. But I don't want to stop here. Under my education, Adrian changed many things. Company internal gender equality, uniform benefits. Upon leaving, Adrian personally saw me to the plane. My destination was the orphanage that raised me. I've always helped this orphanage, donating yearly. I plan to properly educate all girls, let them master resources themselves. Strive to climb up. Slowly teach them how to master discourse power.